This is Monsteropolis, a show about anomalies, legends, and monsters. I'm one of your hosts. My name is Seth Breedlove. This feels awkward after 2 months of Heather.
Yes.
To be back to just you and I.
It's just straight up testosterone.
Yeah. Oh.
Manly.
Macho Fest 2021. Yep. The comments are queuing up right now.
They are.
Self-absorbed Urban Fools edition of Monsteropolis.
Yeah, old school.
My old
Jokes
pal.
and monsters.
Jokes and monsters. The new tagline. Mark Matsky.
Hello.
And I'm Seth Breedlove. And this is the official podcast of Small Town Monsters. Real quick, top of the show, new episode of Beyond the Trail just dropped. So Bigfoot Mountain, the Eli Watson edited debut. Eli's Time to Shine.
Yeah.
Have you seen it?
I haven't seen it. No,
Okay.
I can't wait.
I'm excited for you to watch it. I have to tell you to watch all the way through to the very last shot, which is one of the most inexplicable things I've ever seen in an STM production.
Wow. Sold.
Apparently there was an accident that happened during the edit and no one caught it till the end. You won't, I'm sure the audience watching it won't think it's out of place.
So it's unintentional.
Unintentional last shot of, of the movie. Just
wow.
Really, I actually have a thing here. Maybe Andy can throw it in the timeline, but basically, this inexplicably showed up on the
Whoa.
If you saw the
finally proof,
the comments that were that were going off in the group text when we saw that came to our attention during the premiere.
It's just all part of that cinema verite style.
It's very it's artistic. Okay, so this week's episode was originally supposed to feature Heather Mosier, new Monsteropolis showrunner Andy Matsky, currently sitting behind the camera, waving at us again inexplicably once again. The show is supposed to feature. Well, we're trying to get on back to the old days of Monsteropolis, where we picked themes, we stuck to those themes. I did a bunch of research, or I had someone else do it for me and then hand it to me and make it look like I did it.
And it was super serious.
Very serious.
Like clinically straight ahead.
Basically,
no games.
It's a Woody Allen drama from the 80s levels of serious.
Yeah. Like 30 something, the television show.
Never seen it.
If you did, you would be appropriately sobered.
It's BBC Pride and Prejudice level of serious-minded Sasquatchery.
Yes.
We got letters. I think we want to talk about those letters. By the way, if you want to watch this show ad-free, it is warm in here. Become a channel member, YouTube channel member. There's probably a link right below right now. Click that link. Anyway, we got letters. Do you want to read the first letter?
Sure. This is, we're doing Andrew Smith's
Yeah, let's
letter?
start with Andrew's.
Okay. Hello, Seth, Mark, and Heather. I just wanted to write to you all and tell you how much of a pleasure it was for me to help theatrically premiere Mothman Legacy and On the Trail of UFOs Dark Sky at Braxy Bazaar on September 10th and 11th. It was great having Seth and family in for the event. My daughter, Maddie, loved that there was another kid, Tommy, to play with. I also wanted to thank Seth for the domain name paranormalhottiespots.com from a couple shows back. You have to be careful saying domain names out loud that you don't own. People will swoop in and grab them up. Just hottiespot.com was already taken. Looks Japanese. Anyway, so is Heather a permanent third host of the show? She feels pretty permanent and brings a lot to the conversation. Keep up the great work and talk to you all soon. Andrew Smith, Executive Director, Braxton County CVB, Flatwoods Monster Museum.
Phone number 304.
Social security number.
Yes, that we both know that.
Thank you, Andrew.
Okay. Great. event, Braxy Bazaar. We were in Sutton for the weekend. Flatwoods and Sutton in general are kind of becoming another one of those home away from home places. We've talked about that, I think. We were there. We got to take Tommy to see the big mural, the Flatwoods Monster mural that he loved. He has since become a huge fan of both the Mothman Legacy and the Flatwoods Monster Legacy of Fear. In fact, like right before you got here, he had just finished his third rewatch of Flatwoods Monster of the Day.
Wow.
So it's he's all in on the cryptids right now.
Nice.
So that's cool. The event was really cool. I did want to mention there is now a Bigfoot museum. In addition to the Flatwoods Monster Museum, there's a Bigfoot museum in downtown Sutton as well, which is really fun for Tommy. He enjoyed it. So we went in there.
Who is in charge of that? Like, who runs that?
Yeah, nice people. It's in the Laurel something general store downtown Sutton.
Okay.
The man whose name is escaping me is in Dark Sky. He's a UFO witness that we interviewed.
Oh, wow.
So the owner is actually someone that we've interviewed before. And I can't think of his name because I have no memory. I'm old. I'm turning 40 in a week and a half.
I've heard this, yeah.
But it's just a really cool place to stop, and I would recommend people go to Sutton. The Flatwoods Monster Museum and that Bigfoot museum are both really cool. So if you're in the area, stop by. Is Heather a permanent third host of the show? Mark and I have not discussed this to any degree.
No.
I'm cool with it. I think at some point it might become slightly difficult for her just because she's going to have her own show later this year. Part of this is kind of to get her in the podcasting swing of things. But I guess at the end of the day, it's probably up to her as much as it is anyone. I will say the best thing about having her on the show is I don't feel like it's Mark having to solely hold the show afloat while I flounder around trying to figure out what to talk about. But we'll see. We'll see what happens.
Sure. Yeah, I think that's a perfect answer. It's up to Heather's schedule and what she wants to do.
Yeah.
I think she's brought a lot to the show in terms of jokes and repertoire.
Yeah.
But honestly, she her ability to research and kind of tie together various strands of inquiry is she's so good at it, and it's up to her.
Yeah,
if she wants to do it. There's always a spot at the round table.
Yeah, the Knights of the Round Table.
Yes.
We have another letter. Can you read the other one? Yeah, Hayden.
Okay. Yes. Listener questions with the S in parentheses. So yeah, these are good. Just watch Rougarou : with my dad.
I like that it's actually Rougarou :
Yeah, no, that's true. Yeah, for the benefit of our listeners, it's Rougarou, an actual colon, and then the word colon. So he gets it.
Yeah.
Watch Rougarou : with my dad, and it made him a bona fide STM fanboy like myself. We both loved the doc, and I personally thought the found footage aesthetic made it probably the creepiest one yet. That'd be something to talk about.
Yeah.
Anyways, I was wondering if there is a cryptid/monster that you would love to make a feature about, but know you never will. Maybe because there aren't enough compelling accounts of it, or another reason I'm not thinking of.
Let's answer that now.
Let's.
What? I mean, do you have a input here?
I feel like we've talked about this a tiny bit.
Yeah.
Dover Demon.
Dover Demon's the first thing I thought of.
Yeah. Yeah. Because, I mean, in part, the principal witness won't talk about it anymore. That's my understanding.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like dead in the water at that point. You could, if anyone else who is involved would talk about it, well, maybe. And certainly I think Lauren would talk about it. But you kind of need him. You need the guy. And if he's done with it, then I don't think there's a movie to make.
It's so self-contained too.
It's only one.
Truly a one
night.
and done. Yeah. When I read this, I also thought of the goblins, the Kentucky Goblin case. But I think there is more. Is that one?
That's the other one on my list. Yeah.
Yeah, but I feel like there is a goblin movie to be made. The trick would be, it wouldn't be a self-contained. I've talked about wanting to do an anthology, and American Werewolves is going to be the first, as far as I know, STM anthology movie. At least the way we're talking about it currently, it's an anthology of cases, kind of unconnected cases that happened. Well, I guess they're connected in that they're about dogmen, but it's an anthology movie. We might eventually do something with Kentucky, which would also be an excuse to take us back to Mammoth Cave.
Ooh,
but the goblins. That guy, the other one that springs to mind would be Big Head, which we had attempted back in 2015 as a follow-up to Minerva Monster, and then found out that 2 of the original witnesses are dead. The father's gone, and the son, who, they were both key witnesses. There was a friend too, but the son was in a car accident at some point in his life, and he's mentally handicapped from what his mother told me following the car accident. So that's another one. I don't think we could ever make a movie about that, but it's such a fascinating story, and it's another one of those summer of '78 in Ohio stories.
Right.
Yeah. Which was Night Siege 78 too? Andy? No? 80s.
Yeah,
Andy
that's
cried.
right.
The emotion took over. Night Siege is a cool one, though. That's one.
Night Siege is amazing.
Yeah.
I look every day to see if there's a book that exists. It just is. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. The other part of the early segment of this letter that I wanted to talk to you about was probably the creepiest one. What do you think?
Creepiest STM movie.
From your standpoint, I think it'd be interesting to find out.
You know what? Like, it's always been Bray Road in my head, but Tommy's been watching Mothman Legacy, and he's really enjoying it. And I put on the Mothman at Point Pleasant for him because I thought with the animation and all that kind of stuff, and he was not having it. In fact, he was pretty terrified, and he's not at all scared of Mothman Legacy or Flatwoods. And as I was watching it, I was like, there is a weird, unsettling quality to that nothing else we've made has. And it's not overt, but there's this like strange underlying dread that kind of pervades the whole thing. And some of that was intentional. Some of that was Brandon and I really intentionally feeling like we were ramping up the movie. The movie starts with really slow, static B-roll, and then eventually kind of gets moving. Like, all that was intentional, but the music especially ramps up over the course of the movie. It's supposed to be propelling you toward the bridge disaster. And then when you hit the bridge disaster, there's supposed to be almost like a release. But watching it with Tommy, I was like, this might actually be a little creepier or more unsettling anyway than Bray Road. But otherwise, I would say Bray Road. If we're just talking about the aesthetic of the movie, then it's got to be Bray Road. Because I don't actually see Rougarou as being the least bit scary. But apparently people are buying... It's hard to tell, too, as the guy that made the movie, one of the people that made the movie... When you film that stuff, and you know this, it's all in your head when you're watching. All the baggage from the filming and everything is in your head. So when you're watching it, you're like, oh yeah, Santino's standing right behind Zach in that scene, or like Jason was off to the side taking photos or whatever. That's in your head when you're watching it. So it's hard for me to judge what is actually creepy and what isn't. Because we're always kind of going for, with the films, with the legend movies, we're going for a creepy sort of unsettling vibe. But I would say Bray Road.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting you brought up Mothman, because there are, the animations in that. And the one that popped into my head as you were talking was where Mothman's running alongside the car. I've always thought just the movement of the creature in that scene is really weird and, off-putting.
I had a strange reaction to watching those animations this far after, because I haven't watched that movie in a long time. The animations now remind me of a pop-up book, like a children's pop-up book, and I actually feel like that makes it even more kind of unsettling. There's
like the dog at the beginning.
That one actually to me might be the creepiest, but there is a weird thing in the Bob Bosworth scene. The way the creature walks is like a man, but there's this shambling kind of thing to it. And when Tommy watched it, he said, "Is he a man?"
Huh.
Like he had never thought of it in that way or
Right.
something. And I thought that was kind of cool
Mm-hmm.
too. But yeah, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, that's right. And Bray Road.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I think as a sustained feeling of creepiness,
Yeah,
that holds it the whole way through.
Mm-hmm.
It really.
Well, and the story.
The story, sure, yeah.
Yeah.
And the way we start out with kind of, locating Milwaukee and the surrounding environment is basically you could get killed at any moment by anyone.
It's Wisconsin for you.
Yeah.
Den of iniquity.
Right. Yeah. Scum and villainy.
Yeah.
So but I have to say then the found footage element of the Rougarou, and in particular, I will say it coming into your home, maybe that's what people are reacting to as well. Because obviously that ramps it up significantly. It's one thing to have like Ken Rose walking around in the woods and, there's Bigfoot. But to have this wolf creature coming into your house, and it seems like somebody's capturing this on their phone or whatever, that takes up the disease, the scary factor. It's a whole lot more.
I've been watching Flatwoods because Tommy, and then even like Mothman Legacy, but Flatwoods especially, I have a newfound respect for some of the things we did in that movie. And there's things that make no sense, but there's other things that I'm like, that is kind of cool. Like stylistically, the movie adheres to that one thing all the way through, other than when Sue is in it and she does the Kathleen voiceover sequence. And it shifts into this like Saving Private Ryan, You Are There kind of style. But even that kind of is cool because it's like it totally changes and it does it on the fly. Anyway, I like the fact that movie switches up the style between the recreations while still adhering to that like 50s aesthetic. But I will say I'm happy that when we decided Rougarou was going to be found footage, there is not a single straight recreation in that movie that isn't a form of found footage. It's all got that style. And that's the first time we have done that, where we say, this is the style of the recreations. We're going to adhere to that no matter what. And then we had to make it work. And in some cases I can't tell if it worked or not. There's stuff in that movie I don't know if it works well, but everyone, and it's so subjective.
Yeah.
Like everyone you talk to is going to have a different read on it. The one that I don't know if it works is the security camera. And I know there's moments in there where I think it's super cool. And then there's others where I'm like, I can't tell if that's flying or not.
I like the upside down scene too.
Okay. Yes.
Thought that was pretty.
Oh, I mean, that is the one scene in the movie that I know worked.
Yeah.
And we knew it as we were filming.
Yeah.
And the interest, I mean, there is like a whole nerdy, like, how do you do that kind of thing about that scene, in that we very specifically set up that scene to be shot at sundown because I knew the sun would be coming through. There's no undergrowth in that woods. There's nothing really below like 10 feet. And so I knew that we'd get the rays if we launched all that smoke in there. So then it was just a trick of getting in there and then getting as much smoke as we could and then filming it with the worst camera we have, because that one camera really gets like that found footage look to it.
Yeah.
And we could tell we were torn. Originally we had talked about shooting it with the A7S, like just running, and we were running tests real quick while we were in there trying to figure out what to use, the Handycam or the A7S or the crappy Handycam we ended up using. And you could just see everything was blown out on that little Handycam, but you were still getting the rays of light and everything. I was like, that's the one.
It's just what you're going for.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's cool. All right. So, bonus question. One. One of two.
One of two.
Because of Seth's recent digression about Dawn of the Dead, I'm interested in hearing each of your personal favorite horror movies.
Each of you. Oh, so it's our single favorite horror movie.
Well, it could be read. I hope it's not
some
that.
Some of your favorites.
Yeah, some of your personal favorites.
Okay, cool. Go.
Me?
Well, you've got a list in front
I have
of you.
a list, and I have to ask you, because that doesn't matter to me either way, but Where would... I'll ask it this way.
Yeah.
The 1933 King Kong, horror movie or not?
It's terrifying.
Okay.
I haven't been able to get Tommy to sit through it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's a horror movie also. I don't know what genre it would belong in if it weren't.
It's a romantic horror movie.
Yeah. So that's probably number one.
That's a good one.
As a horror movie of all time, like I would watch it right now if it were on, just stop everything and put that aside. So that's probably the tip of the top. And people who know how much I'm into Godzilla would probably say, well, what happened? And I would say, because it's 1954, and to me it belongs in a different genre. It is, you can read that as a horror movie. And I have no problem if people say the original Godzilla is horror. Yes, I agree. But for the purpose of this list, I wanted to set it aside and say probably belongs more in sci-fi and fantasy than it does horror.
Yeah.
I don't know. That. So anyway, along with that, a movie I'm really high on right now because I've watched it a couple times recently is Son of Frankenstein from 1939. And that's largely in the strength of the performances of the actors. It was Karloff's last Frankenstein performance. Mm-hmm. It has Lionel Atwill as Inspector Krogh, who sticks darts in his wooden arm and then throws them at the dartboard as part of the thing. And that's who the character in Young Frankenstein is based entirely on. Lionel Atwill's performance in that. And Bela Lugosi, I think, has one of his greatest roles ever in that movie as Igor. Because he's the assistant. He wants to, he sort of nurses the Frankenstein's monster back to life and uses him to exact revenge on the people in the town who hung him, and he survived his hanging.
I own all these. I haven't seen this one.
Yeah. Son of Frankenstein, it's sort of flown under the radar, and there's this little kid actor in it that people love to hate, and for that reason they sort of, I think, dismiss this film. But it really, when it was released in 1939, it revived the horror genre for Universal because there were like censorship issues going on at the time. But then Universal released Dracula and Frankenstein as a double bill to see if anybody still liked horror, and they did. It sold amazing amount of tickets. So then they rushed Son of Frankenstein into production in 39, and then it was off to the races again. You have Wolfman and all of the House of Frankenstein and House of Dracula, Frankenstein versus the Wolfman. All these films came out of a result of the 39 Frankenstein, Son of Frankenstein. Basil Rathbone is literally the son of Frankenstein.
Who directed this one, though? It's not Whale.
No, Whale was out by this time.
And you said this, right? 2 seconds ago? And I missed it?
No.
Oh, okay. I just assumed I was
I think it's Robert Florey was the director of this one. But what they retained was a lot of the expressionistic, like out of proportion sets, a lot of the shadows, and the interior, especially of the castle, only makes sense in sort of what would you say, an exaggerated sort of way. German expressionism, that whole school. So that's good. And of course, Frankenstein and Bride of Frankenstein are on that list.
Yeah.
I could go on, but I think the only other one, bringing that up, I'll have to say Island of Lost Souls, 1933. Yeah. Charles Laughton.
Creepy one.
Super creepy. It's so good from just beginning to end. And then like coming into the modern era to prove that I can like modern movies too.
Yeah.
Cloverfield and Troll Hunter are
Troll
both
Hunter.
movies I love. I really love those both.
They're a lot of fun.
And what's weird is they're both found footage, and it's not like I only get down with found footage films, but these are ones that are really, like Troll Hunter in particular for me, does a great job of approximating what would that be like if that really happened. Mm-hmm. Like you're out in the woods and something as tall as the tree starts chasing you. I love that film.
This is, I read this letter and then kind of forgot about it, but I've talked about it on the show before too, because someone recently asked what horror directors I like, and I talked about Hitchcock, and anyway, I like Psycho. I saw Psycho. I've seen Psycho actually last year for my birthday. I went to see Psycho. So Psycho is one of my favorites. I absolutely adore the first Halloween. And I really like the one that came out a couple years ago, but it wouldn't be one of my favorites. I really like Jason X. It's one of the dumbest, most fun movie-going experiences I've ever had. I threw a pop on someone in front of me because I was laughing so hard. Just wild. Yeah, that was one of my favorites. I really do love Romero and Night and Dawn especially, but Dawn is my favorite of those two. And there's others. I love Sixth Sense. And I forget about it, and then I'll catch clips of it or something, and I'll be like, wow, that really was a great movie. There's a lot that I would probably reference. It's funny because I always say horror is my least favorite genre. I think it is. It's very hard for me to watch new horror or horror in general. I don't deal well with gore, and I feel like the genre just kind of like anymore hinges on just, the misery of people and getting dissected on camera or whatever, human centipeded. And I'm not into that stuff. So I haven't watched a lot of the newer stuff. But whenever, I really want to watch the Conjuring movies. I just haven't brought myself to do it yet because I know there's children involved, and that also bothers me. So, but I'll get around to it. There's a lot of great horror, especially the older stuff. Like you're talking about all the 30s and 40s and 50s. Yeah. That is like horror of Dracula with Christopher Lee is like one of the first horror movies I ever saw. King Kong, if we're counting that, it was probably the first horror movie I saw. I very distinctly remember watching Scream, which was the first horror movie, new horror movie I saw as a kid, and seeing it on VHS the week it came out and being, mortified. But yeah, that
movie is so smart though. I mean, it's so well done.
I love the Scream movies. Yeah. That's the, if there's a horror series where I know I'll enjoy it no matter what, it's Scream, because I've watched and enjoyed every one.
Yeah. So. It's amazing to me how it sends up the genre, but it also is the genre.
Yeah.
I don't know how they pulled that off, but the
second
one
especially.
Yeah.
The second one is on another level, even from the first one. But yeah, that's my answer.
All right, so the bonus.
Yeah.
Should we go there?
Yeah.
Oh, I just have to throw in an honorable mention. That is The Black Cat from 1934, starring Boris Karloff and Bela Lugosi, and probably their biggest double bill, where they both have the same sort of role. And that was directed by the same director who did Detour. Yeah, Ulmer, 1945.
I mean, Nosferatu.
Oh yeah.
I just bought a book that goes frame by frame. Did you see this? It's in there.
No.
It goes frame by frame through Nosferatu.
Really?
And I bought it for Jersey Devil because that's kind of like what I'm looking toward is silent film for the horror we're going to inflict upon people with our Jersey Devil movie. Prepare. Anyway.
Yeah, the Nosferatu character is one of the scariest looking figures, I think, on film.
Have you seen the video of him just kind of hanging out? And it's like I saw it as a meme, and it's like, this is actually more terrifying than anything in the movie. And
I don't know. I don't think so.
It might not even be a video. It might just be a still of him eating a sandwich or something.
With those
horrifying
long fingers.
Yeah, he's sitting on the side. On a break, and it's terrifying.
Yeah.
There's a really good movie about that movie. I can't remember what it's called, but it had John Malkovich in it. And it's about the making of Nosferatu. And it's also kind of fictional. It's a good one.
Max Schreck.
Yes.
Was
Max
the
Schreck.
actor.
Yeah. All right. So I want to talk about something.
Okay. That was Hayden. I know we had said that, but thank you, Hayden Gilbert.
Yes. Thank you, Hayden.
For your letter.
I want to talk about something. This is serious. It's also way in advance of when this thing is going to be out, so I have to be careful what I say here. But we filmed last week on the first episode of the Bigfoot Project in Minerva. I really wish Heather was here because we were together for when something absolutely mind-blowing happened. But what I can tell you is we went to Minerva Friday. We had the kids in tow. So it was Tommy, Lily, who's her youngest, and Jensen. And we all were staying in the cabin. So it was Heather, me, Corey, Heather's husband, Corey, and then the kids. But before, we had gone out for dinner. We thought this was going to be our night to just haul gear out there and prepare for like a weekend, like the weekend, and the actual bigfooting would take place the next night. I'm not going to go into too much detail. I'll just say we have the clearest wood knocks on audio you'll ever hear anywhere. We have something banging on one of those rubber drums up in the Rougarou woods, seemingly as a response. We have back and forth. We have eye shine. We have potential thermal footage. I haven't got to go through the thermal footage yet. And then I had a sighting. So, so I saw something on Saturday in broad daylight on a pipeline, right outside right on the property. I don't think you saw this part of the property. I don't think so.
I don't think so either.
But do you know where the abandoned house was?
I remember seeing the power lines at some point.
This isn't the power lines. This is something else. This is a pipeline, so it's a clear cut. But do you know where the abandoned cabin is?
No.
Okay. It's right up by that.
Okay.
You don't know where that is. So it'd be 2 hills over from the bottom of where the cabin, so like 2 hills up behind there.
Okay.
I saw something. I don't know how much detail I want to go into yet. We're still kind of like making sense of what happened. But we're driving by the pipeline.
About what time of day?
2 o'clock, right around 2:15. We were actually out placing trail cams. So we were trail camming different spots, not with the intention of catching Bigfoot on trail cam, because I don't think we will. If anything, we were kind of trying to, if they're there, I was kind of trying to push them more toward the cabin. We don't put any near the cabin, anywhere near the cabin. They're basically on 2 sides of the property, away from the areas where we know there's activity. We were driving by this pipeline, and Corey's showing me this. And the first thing I see is this all happens in maybe 1/8 of a second. And I said originally like 2 seconds. There's a lot of things that are going through my brain, still trying to make sense of what happened. Basically, I saw a dark brown, hair-covered thing at a dead sprint from undergrowth into a tree line that cleared this section that I was looking at of this hill in maybe like 1/8 of a second. It was just, but the weirdest thing about it was trucking, and you could see the shoulders moving.
Oh, wow.
So what I saw was moving at a dead sprint, and it looked like, now that have replayed it in my head, I'm thinking maybe it was younger, because it doesn't seem like it was big to me.
Okay.
But it was moving incredibly fast, and it was just a dead sprint across this hill. Just power trucking.
Yeah.
And I dove out of the moving, which you've seen the footage, haven't you? I dove out of a moving ATV because I saw it and didn't know what to do. My brain would not process what I should do. And so I didn't even start screaming stop until I was already leaping out of the car, because I didn't know what to do. There's seriously like maybe a second or 2 seconds between when I see it and when I finally move, because the first thing I thought is that I was seeing the top of a reed or something. And so we ended up going back and recreating all this, following the tire marks in the grass that we were following, all that, and it wasn't anything like that. Anyways, I saw this thing, and I was filming when it happened, and as of right now, it does not look like we have the footage of it. I don't know why that is. I know it was there. But anyway, it was just a dark brown individual, and I leapt out of the car. Unfortunately, the ATV, we were already driving along a decline. So when I leap out, I'm at a dead sprint almost downhill.
Right.
And I'm doing the like arms flailing, like trying not to stop.
Right.
But I thought if I could just get to far enough over to the clearing, I could get a shot of it moving into the woods. By the time I hit the clearing, the clearing only stays clear for 10 yards, and then it dead ends into about 100 feet of thorn bush, or 100 yards of thorn bush up the side of this hill that this thing was running across. I have questions why it would be running in broad daylight like that. Why wouldn't it just duck down? I think maybe it was a young one, and maybe what happened was like we startled it and it didn't know what to do, and it waited a second or so, and then decided, because it was at the end of the clearing when I saw it. So it was already about to head into the trees. But I only saw it for an eighth of a second.
Sure.
I would say fifth of a second. It was just.
Well, what that makes me think of is a future project that's coming. There's a quote. I'll paraphrase the quote, but it's basically these things sometimes don't do things that make sense.
Yeah.
It's not as if they operate
about this last
only
night,
to patterns, but they go off of the pattern sometimes. So especially the young seem to be like, why not try it? Like
it looked.
So it was going into woods. Do you think?
So we went.
It was heading towards.
So we turned around and went down to those woods and went up in the woods. The only other thing I could say is there was maybe like a 5-minute period where we're just at the clearing, hanging out, filming, and then we went back and did this recreation to see if we could recreate it. We were hearing things moving around up in the woods, and the only thing I can tell you is these things in that area don't care if you know they're there. So even Alex and Eli have told me that when they were filming Beyond the Trail, there's always stuff walking around their tent up in the Rougarou woods. And Heather and I on Friday night had an episode where they came in on us, like from all sides, and you heard them over here knocking, and then all of a sudden there's noise right here beside you off the trail, and over here you hear the clearest wood knocks. When I went through the video footage. And I haven't gone through all the footage yet. I pulled like 4 or 5 wood knocks just in those few minutes, and it doesn't make sense why they're wood knocking. Why are they knocking on trees? Like, what purpose does it serve at that moment? And our YouTube audience is going to eat this up and like spit it back at me. I don't really care. But like,
beyond intimidation, maybe. I don't know.
We have, but they were knocking on trees and oil drums and like, it's bizarre, man. And we have so many wood knocks. And then on Sunday, the day we leave, I'm back packing up the cabin, and no recording. I was out behind the outhouse, which don't go in the outhouse.
Right.
I was out behind the outhouse, and something up on the hill behind the cabin let out an Area X style whoop. It was just it was 10 times as much as activity as we ever expected. And I'm not giving away a quarter of what happened. So like at one point, Heather and I were off down the road, and Corey starts screaming at the cabin because he said something walked up to within 20 feet of the cabin.
Wow.
And the kids are in there watching TV.
Mm-hmm.
So like he was trying to startle it away or let it know it. He said it just walked right up, like crunch, crunch, crunch. The next night, we had something weird as can be, like sprint sound, like thump, 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 running down that road that leads to the cabin.
Yeah.
Just coming down there, but you could hear it coming from like way off, like thump, 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 like big resonating thumps. It's just weird. I don't know what to tell you. The audio is interesting because you're catching everything we're reacting to in terms of like footfalls and I don't know how you explain that away. Now, I'm sure a lot of people will say deer, or other people will probably be the most common thing. Like I talked to Corey about that, and he's like, you'd have to have a death wish. It's Minerva, Ohio. It's a farm. You don't go in. It's private property. You don't go in someone's woods there.
Yeah.
Like the only other people living on that road are farmers. Most of them his relatives. So, that activity that night was really interesting. We just had some of the craziest stuff I can.
What about the pond? Did anything happen? Was there any things going on with the pond or not? There was
noise in the woods across from the pond.
Okay.
As usual. But I don't know that there was anything. Now, the next night, we left the recorders out, and I did go through a little bit of that audio. And it sounds like something is right on the other side of the pond. And there's there's a wood knock that comes from what must be across the pond. But I don't know. I'm really interested. So Heather set out recorders that night.
Yeah.
And at 2 a.m. that night, I woke up because I thought I heard something screaming outside. What's really weird is when I came back in, I went up, I actually got up and I was about to go outside with a camera. It's 2 a.m. Everyone's asleep. And Corey woke up and he's like, what are you doing? I was like, there's something screaming out on the hill. And Heather heard us talking, so she gets up. So her and I go outside with the camera, and it's dead quiet other than the crickets. And we were out there for maybe a minute or whatever. And then I went back in and went back to bed. And as I was laying there with Tommy, I thought I heard singing, distant, like melodic kind of singing. And that was weird.
Wow.
And her recorders were going, so we should have audio from that night. So I'm hoping she hasn't got into that yet, but we've gone through what we can, but it's been a crazy week and we're getting ready for a trip.
Yeah.
But I would say in terms of like, what the heck are the odds that we're going to go out there to film something and have all this happen? It's never happened. The thing I kept saying to the camera, because this is kind of a vlog, is like, I've been in X, I've been on the Ridge, I've been in the Olympic Peninsula twice. We've been in the Adirondacks. I've never experienced that level of activity on such a consistent basis for such a prolonged period of time. In X, there was activity, but it was a different type of activity than this. This was that would be the closest thing I could compare this to, would be what I experienced in X. And I'm not saying this was more than X. X, we had vocals. Unless we had those vocals on that recorder, we didn't catch a lot of vocals. We had the whoop on Sunday. And other than that, I really didn't hear a lot of vocals, but that also makes sense to me because in X, we're 9 miles into the wilderness in the middle of nowhere. They're probably less concerned about screaming or making vocalizations than they would be when there's a farm that we can see from the cabin,
Yeah. I guess the thing people will start to understand when they watch the show is how close everything is.
Yeah.
It's not like you're saying, it's not like X where you're remote.
Yeah.
And you're the only people around. I mean, this is, not only are you fairly close to Minerva, but the property itself is close in. And if they made a whole lot of vocalization type sound, they would be making themselves pretty vulnerable, I would think. I don't know. It's wild.
Just the level of activity is wild. And there was something else I was going to say and I blanked. It was interesting, but I forget what it was now. I'm excited for people to see the episode. In fact, I'm editing it myself. I was originally, Eli's editing these for me, but now that this happened, I kind of want to be able to set the tone for how we're going to do this going forward.
Right.
Because it was way more active than I was expecting. And what the series is going to be is me and other probably Ohio Bigfoot investigators, Ohio Appalachian at least, Bigfoot investigators going out into this location. And this season is this place. I don't know if that means other seasons are going to come and there'll be other places, but like I want to take Amy Boo. I want to go out with you and Andy and Tommy. I thought that would be cool, kind of like the Sasquatch episode. I'm taking the Moth Boys out. I'm going to take the Wild and Weird West Virginia guys, Les Odell. I'd like to get like Mark Mazel. There's some people I have on my wish list who I'd really like to get out there, but it was not what I was expecting. I don't know. One thing, I know what I was going to say. One thing about that property that you probably heard him say this. I hadn't heard this. That property 40 years ago was not wooded.
Oh, I didn't know that.
They planted 50,000 trees in 2 years on that property and it has grown up. So 40 years ago, there weren't sightings happening there. This is all recent activity on that property and in the area in general. And so that I thought was really interesting because it's almost like maybe they feel like they have this little haven here, where because there's not really people back there. And it's probably pretty weird for all of a sudden us and little kids coming in there, on the weekend.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Right away, I think of Salt Fork when you say that. Yeah. Because Salt Fork was the same thing. It was down to stumps. And then it all grew up into, what looks like old growth forest now, but it's not. And that's pretty wild. So you had nighttime and daytime activity.
Nonstop.
Yeah. With a lot of the percussive sounds.
Percussive.
A few vocalizations.
Yes.
Any
tree
tracks or anything? Any physical?
No tracks, but we did get a rock throw, which was one of the wilder things that happened on Friday night.
Okay.
And that's probably something I need to save.
Yeah.
I could at least say that, like, Heather and I are down that road, maybe 40 yards from the cabin, down the road. So we're in the tree line. We're in the woods.
Yeah.
And stuff's moving all around us. We hear things up on the ridge, and then you hear coming through the tree canopy or the leaf canopy, like, whack, 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 and then it just impacts on the ground, and it came off the hill. You could hear it moving from the hill down near us, and when it hit, it was a thump.
Sure.
Like thump into the ground. So it was a good sized rock, whatever they threw. And I said, that's a rock for sure.
Yeah.
I'll say one of the other weird things about it, some of the noises were in the trees. So, and if, like that could be owls or something. However, if you're going off Ohio, specifically Minerva lore, the Catons always say they go in the trees. So it made sense. We kept therming the trees. I kept thermal, I had the FLIR with us. So we kept looking to the trees.
I mean, there's that vine swinging story, isn't there? With
swinging down and picking up one of the Catons. Yeah. Dropping them.
Yeah.
Yep. It's wild. I'm really excited to put the first episode together. And we weren't expecting it. What I said was that this show was going to be part podcast with an investigative component. And this isn't a podcast at all. Like, it really is going to be, I think it's going to be pretty cool. The noises and stuff we captured alone set it on another level from almost anything we've made that actually tries to find a Bigfoot.
Yeah.
So
it's exciting.
Yeah. After that, I don't know when that's coming out. I'm trying to get it out before the year's end now, because it's like, I want to get it out.
Yeah. Right.
It's pretty crazy.
Oh, sure.
Yeah. I'm also curious how the activity changes and evolves over time. Like hunting season's coming up. I think in Ohio, these things tend to escape to more densely wooded areas where they can hide.
That starts this weekend, I think.
Starting real soon. So, but their property might be a good hiding spot, because I don't think there's people hunting their property. If they are, it's not much. There are deer stands on the property, but, from talking to Heather and Corey, I'm not sure how often there's anyone actually hunting there. So anyway, this is Monsteropolis. Leave us a rating and review on iTunes. Send us mail, monsteropolismail@gmail.com. I think that's it for now.
Yeah. Ask more questions.
Yes, send more questions.
Food related.